The sound of a boot striking wet gravel cracked through the cold air like a gunshot, and in that instant the world narrowed to a mother's arms tightening around her child as if love alone could stop what was coming next. Rain clung to their hair, mud stained their clothes, and fear pressed against their ribs so hard it stole their breath. What should have been a quiet morning in the woods became a nightmare that would change every life present, because cruelty had found them first. Before this story pulls you deeper, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the idea that good can still arrive when hope feels lost. Your support keeps stories like this alive. The widow had not always lived with fear as a second shadow. There was a time when mornings were simple, when laughter moved freely through her small cabin, and when her daughter woke to warmth instead of worry. But grief has a way of reshaping everything it touches. After her husband died in a work accident years earlier, the forest town that once felt protective slowly grew sharp edges. Bills stacked up. Smiles faded. Help dried up. She took whatever work she could find, cleaning cabins for seasonal visitors, mending clothes, selling homemade bread, and teaching her daughter to be brave even when bravery hurt. They lived modestly, but she taught her child that dignity did not depend on money, and kindness was still worth offering even when the world did not return it. The men who came for them that morning were not strangers. They were part of the town's darker undercurrent, men who smelled weakness the way wolves smell blood. They had watched the widow struggle, seen her refuse their offers of help that came with conditions she could not accept. Pride, they called it. Disrespect, they claimed. In truth, it was control they wanted, and when control was denied, cruelty followed. They waited until the rain blurred the road and the forest swallowed sound. Until the cabin stood quiet and isolated like a target painted by fate itself. The attack came fast and loud, boots on wood, laughter that carried no humor, hands that shoved and grabbed without shame. The widow fell to her knees not because she was weak, but because she chose to shield her daughter with her own body. Mud soaked into her jeans, and pain flared across her ribs, but she refused to let go. Her daughter clung to her, crying into her jacket, the small body shaking with a terror no child should ever know. The men jeered, feeding off fear, convinced that no one would stop them because no one ever had before. The forest, however, has a way of keeping secrets and revealing them at the right moment. Beyond the trees, on a trail that curved toward the cabins, a man was running. His steps were measured, his breathing controlled, his awareness sharp in a way that came from years of training and scars earned far from home. He was a Navy SEAL on leave, drawn to the quiet of the woods to outrun memories that never fully slept. Beside him ran his K9 partner, a powerful dog whose loyalty had been forged in places where hesitation meant death. They had survived together, trusted each other with their lives, and now they moved as one, senses alert to a disturbance that did not belong. The dog heard it first, a sound layered with panic and violence. Ears snapped forward, muscles tensed, and the SEAL felt the shift instantly. Training took over. He changed direction without slowing, boots cutting through mud, heart steady despite the surge of adrenaline. He did not know the faces involved or the reasons, but he recognized danger the way some men recognize prayer. When they broke through the trees and saw the scene unfolding, something ancient and unyielding rose inside him, the same force that once pushed him forward into fire for people he had never met. The men did not notice him at first. Their focus remained on the woman and child, on proving power where none was deserved. The K9's growl cut through the rain, low and unmistakable, a sound that spoke of consequences. Heads turned. Laughter faltered. Confidence cracked. The SEAL moved with purpose, placing himself between the attackers and the victims, his presence alone shifting the balance. He did not need to shout or posture. The calm in his eyes carried the weight of someone who had ended violence before and would do so again if forced. What followed happened quickly, but it felt long to those watching. The K9 advanced with disciplined precision, not wild or uncontrolled, but focused and ready. One man stumbled back, slipping in the mud, fear finally breaking through his bravado. Another raised his hands too late, realizing that the forest had not been as empty as he thought. The SEAL moved with efficiency, disarming, restraining, protecting, his actions clean and decisive. There was no cruelty in him, only resolve. Violence ended not with revenge, but with control restored. The widow stayed curled around her daughter until she felt the rain ease against her skin and the weight of danger lift. When she finally looked up, she saw the SEAL kneeling nearby, his attention gentle, his K9 sitting alert but calm at his side. Mud streaked his uniform, and water dripped from his hair, yet there was a steadiness to him that felt like shelter. He did not rush them. He gave them space, respect, and time to breathe. For the first time that morning, the widow felt the tight knot in her chest loosen just enough to let air in. Authorities arrived not long after, drawn by reports from nearby cabins and the unmistakable presence of order where chaos had been. The men were taken away, their power dissolved by daylight and accountability. The forest seemed to exhale. The rain softened to a mist, and birds cautiously returned to the edges of the clearing. The seal stayed until he was sure the widow and her daughter were safe, until blankets were wrapped around them and warm hands replaced cold fear. He said little, because sometimes silence is the kindest language, and then he prepared to leave, believing his role was done. But stories like this do not end where danger stops. In the days that followed, the town changed in small but meaningful ways. People who had looked away before began to look closer. Neighbors brought food, repaired the widow's porch, and offered rides without expectation. The daughter started sleeping through the night again, the shadows in her dreams slowly giving way to light. The widow carried scars, visible and unseen, but she also carried a renewed belief that goodness could still find her even in the darkest moments. The seal returned to his life, to training and missions and the quiet weight of service, but something from that morning stayed with him. He thought often of the child's grip loosening as safety returned, of the strength it takes to protect love with nothing but your body and will. His K9 seemed to remember too, pausing sometimes on trails, ears lifting as if listening for echoes of that day. They had done what they were trained to do, yet it felt different because this time the battlefield was home, and the victory was measured in lives unbroken rather than enemies defeated. Months later, the widow stood on her porch watching her daughter play in the yard, laughter ringing out like a promise. The forest still stood tall around them, indifferent and beautiful, but it no longer felt like a threat. It felt like a witness. She had learned that strength did not mean facing the world alone, and courage could arrive wearing unexpected faces. She carried gratitude not as a debt, but as a quiet flame that warmed her resolve to keep going, to keep believing. If this story has begun to touch something inside you, stay with it, because what matters most is not the violence that started it, but the humanity that answered back. The true impact of that morning lived on in choices made afterward. The widow volunteered at a local shelter, offering help to others who felt invisible. The town organized programs to protect the vulnerable, learning too late but still learning. The daughter grew with a sense of justice shaped not by fear, but by the knowledge that someone had stepped in when it mattered. And somewhere out there, a seal and his K9 continued to run through forests and cities alike, guardians in a world that often forgets how much it needs them. Before we reach the end, please take a moment to comment below and share your thoughts or prayers for the mother and child in this story. Your words matter more than you know. As this story closes, if it moved your heart, reminded you of the power of courage, or restored even a small piece of your faith in humanity, please like the video, leave a comment, and share it with someone who needs hope today. Sometimes the simplest actions create ripples that reach farther than we can see. Because in the end, this was never just a story about thugs, or a widow, or even a Navy SEAL and his K9. It was about the moment when fear met resolve, when cruelty was answered by courage, and when a child learned that even in a broken world, protectors still exist. And that knowledge, once planted, grows into something stronger than fear, something that lasts.